The Titan submersible found destroyed at the bottom of the sea.
What caused the implosion of the OceanGate Titan submersible that killed 5 people?
The Titan submersible suffered a catastrophic failure, imploding on its mission to explore the wreck of the Titanic, instantly killing all 5 people on board 3 years ago. But it was not some sudden, unforeseeable failure. According to the Canadian Transportation Safety Board, which just published its final definitive investigation, scrutinizing every aspect of the ship's construction, right down to the weave of its carbon fiber, Titan failed because the company that operated it screwed up again and again and again.
The debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber.
That hull was starting to fail, and then it failed catastrophically.
The TSB points to an entire chain of experimental designs, engineering flaws, and predictable risks that the company's owner should have understood, but didn't appear to. Now, I can't go through every single one, but I can show you the biggest, most critical failures and how the TSB believes they are directly responsible for the Titan being crushed under the weight of the Atlantic Ocean like a soda can. One of the clearest illustrations of how Titan was doomed from the very start, you can understand just by looking at its shape. Take a look. There are all kinds of shapes here, from this semicircle forward dome to this unpressurized pointed tail, but the real core of this build is its pressurized cylindrical hull.
The pressure hull is the material that protects the humans and stands between them and the immense pressures, 380 times atmosphere pressures that they're going to be subjected to as they go down to the bottom of the ocean.
Yes, this is where you put people. But there's a physics problem with cylinders, which I can show you by giving you this can. If I asked you to crush this with your bare hands, I think intuitively your first go at it wouldn't be to try to crush it vertically this way, because you know that's how it's most stable. You'd probably do this. It's just easier, right? The can's weakest point is along its longest edge. So now imagine you've descended to 3,800 meters, where you have the insane pressure of all that ocean water pressing down on this soda can you're in, like having an elephant standing on every square inch. The shape's not great. No, what's considered from an engineering standpoint much better is a sphere. Like, if I ask you to crush this with your bare hands, on what axis would you do it? Would you go top to bottom, side to side, diagonally? It's a trick question because it doesn't matter. Between a sphere and a cylinder of the same volume, the sphere is much more stable because it has no weak point. According to the TSB, this is the best shape for resisting external pressure and allowing even distribution of stresses. It's just uniformly resistant to pressure. And it's why we often see deep ocean submersibles looking more like this. Spheres just make sense. When Titanic director James Cameron took the Deep Sea Challenger down to the deepest oceanic trench on Earth, his pressurized compartment was a sphere. After Titan imploded, when a real estate billionaire in Ohio announced plans to explore the Titanic himself, here was the design choice. Again, a sphere to house the sub's most precious cargo. So, maybe you're asking, why did the company that built Titan go with a cylinder design? Well, this should help answer that question. A cylinder with this volume can and did fit 5 people inside. Tight, but they fit. A comparable sphere would not have this much usable space. Because just think about how a sphere curves inward at every angle. That creates more dead space where it's harder to fit things in. And for a business where passengers are what pay the bills, maybe the need for space trumps the need for optimal structural integrity.
Spheres are notorious for not giving you a lot of space for humans to sit. So cylinders are more effective if you need more living space.
It's very much like a fuselage of an aircraft, right? You can utilize the space a bit more efficiently. This is a relatively small vessel, so that could have motivated them to choose that particular shape. But from a structural perspective, obviously there are some challenges.
Now, of course, A cylindrical submersible is no automatic death sentence. So says almost every military submarine design ever. But if you're going to build a deep sea tin can, you'd better build it the right way with the right materials. And that was problem number 2. One of the nice things about carbon fiber is that it describes itself fairly well. It's literally just fibers, these long strands of carbon, just micrometers in diameter, many times narrower than a strand of hair. The nicest thing about carbon fiber, though, is its incredible dual property of being both strong and light. That's what they call its strength to weight ratio. It's exceptional compared to alternatives like steel, which is strong and heavy. And as the TSB report points out, the designers of Titan wanted to push the limits of carbon fiber because, first of all, it saves money. A lighter vehicle is cheaper to move, easier to lift into and out of water.
You don't need as big a crane to lift it up and put it on the mothership. You don't need a bigger crane on the mothership to lift it up and put it in the ocean. You don't need as much help getting it back up to the surface.
It's also more agile underwater. Your engine thrust doesn't need to be as powerful when your vehicle is several times lighter than it would be otherwise. And from a capability standpoint, you can just pack more things onto a vehicle that isn't already over-encumbered by its own weight. Technology, cargo, passengers, you name it.
These materials are primarily used in other sectors because they offer very high strength and low weight. So there's an obvious advantage there.
The most critical part of Titan, its cylindrical core, was made of carbon fiber, just over 12 centimeters thick. So carbon fiber about that thick. Other components, like the giant connecting rings on either side, they were made of titanium. But it's that carbon fiber core that really needed to stand up to deep ocean pressure. And even by the TSB's own calculations, it should have.
The issue is not with the material. I think it's with the engineering. The material could have been designed slightly differently, and that could have helped improve the integrity of the structure.
According to its final report, a defect-free carbon fiber cylinder would have used less than 0.00001% of its life over the 24 dives that the Titan was subjected to, preceding the occurrence dive. The occurrence dive being its last dive. But read that again. Titan's 24 lifetime dives, it should have been able to make millions more dives before burning through even just 1% of its total carbon fiber lifespan. But was the cylinder defect-free? Maybe not, because unlike more understood materials like steel or titanium, the TSB points out how inadvertently prone to defect carbon fiber can be.
Every voyage below the surface of the water, you're effectively loading the structure. So with every cycle, there is the potential to create damage in the material.
Here's an example. Carbon fiber composites have low resistance to impact loads, such as those that may be imparted during transportation or during operations. Translation: you can damage carbon fiber by hitting it. So if you're not careful with how it jostles around during transport, for example, maybe you introduce a kink in something that needs to be absolutely impervious to pressure. Another risk: storage of carbon fiber composites outdoors where it is exposed to the elements in below freezing temperatures is also a concern. If water is able to ingress into the carbon fiber composite and freeze, it will expand and may cause damage. Okay, so don't expose it to sub-zero temperatures, except it was stored outdoors from the end of July 2022 until the 6th of February 2023 at a marine base in St. John's Harbor. The average low during the thick of winter, -5.5. The city has a maritime climate and experiences snow, strong winds, freezing rain, and hail. And the TSB appears to believe Titan was defective when it descended that fateful day to Titanic depths. It points out how it managed to get a hold of a trimmed off piece of the carbon fiber core. This piece, important to note, is not from after the wreck, but long before it during construction. And look what they found. Taking 18 samples from this piece of Titan carbon fiber, they noticed several important things depending on the orientation of the fibers they were looking at. In one direction, Here, see how these stacked sheets of carbon fiber composite making up the core form very clean, tight lines. But in samples that showed defects, there were gaps, which indicate the beginning of structural weakness. Here's a different orientation of another set of pieces. Again, on the left, a clean weave, but on the right, this deformity, this waviness that the TSB considers severe.
I would say for carbon fiber materials, there certainly is an opportunity for some critical defects to form during the manufacturing process. And certainly these defects can grow into flaws, which can cause catastrophic failure of the structure.
The long and short of it, that cylinder, which theoretically should have been able to survive millions of trips, with the worst of the defects, could have used more than 82% of its fatigue life in the time up to the occurrence dive.
Cost cutting, bad engineering decisions, the desire to get to the Titanic as quickly as they could to start making profit. A lot of steps along the way were missed.
An experimental design and a lack of rigor. There are countless examples of this in the report, and I could keep going. Normal engineering practice is typically to expose full-scale models to hundreds, possibly thousands of real-life pressure tests. But in the case of Titan, they did this only 4 times. And even gauging the success of these tests would have required a fairly comprehensive disassembly of the core to check for damage, which also was not done. So did anybody engineering, building, overseeing, or operating Titan have any idea how many dives it could survive? Not at all.
This is the first carbon-hulled, carbon-titanium subsea vehicle ever built to go down with these components on it. And nobody knew what the loading was going to be on this. No computer is going to be able to tell you with those components.
Now, were there safety backstops? Of course, but the report outlines how even the sensors meant to detect structural failures were sometimes broken or their warnings ignored, and how staff and senior leadership who disagreed with the company's cavalier stance on safety were sometimes shown the door.
I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And, I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me.
But at the end of the day, the TSB report is fairly clear. Yes, there were aggravating factors, from a corporate culture that prioritized speed and innovation over steadiness and safety, to even the industry as a whole being one that overall suffers from too little effective oversight. But the critical failure, the reason a multi-million-dollar project sank to the ocean floor with 5 people on board, was that you had in Titan a vessel that the way it was designed, the way it was built, the way it was tested, had no business being where it was.